Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Teo here, back with more Ever17. We have now finally escaped Limu, hopefully for the last time, and are now gonna try and get us some answers. Find out, like, who the hell Blick Winkel is, and what Coco's deal is, and all that good nonsense. And, like, what's up with this perspective thing? Like, is Hokuto and, like, the point of view character actually the same person? Like, the world may never know, or the world might know really soon. Could go either way, really. Dawn. I was in the middle of a white darkness. Before I knew it, I had become lost in another world. I didn't even have time to wonder where I was before I found the answer. The year was 2017. I could see it. I could see everything. I already knew what had happened at that time. Takeshi. Takeshi, get up. The taxi's here. Oh, yeah. Takeshi jumped out of bed and stood up. He stretched his arms and loosened his shoulders. Takeshi and Tsugumi were still stuck in the examination room of the research facility. Chami, come over here. Come on, we gotta get going now. Tsugumi scooped out Chami, who'd been running around on the floor, and held him to her chest. Huh? Stooping down, Tsugumi let out a cry of alarm. What's wrong, Tsugumi? Takeshi, under the bed. Under the bed? Mine? He looked under the bed he had been sleeping on. Something was lying there. Reaching out, he pulled whatever it was closer to him. Huh? Pee-pee. Hey, Pee-pee, what's going on? What are you doing here? Takeshi picked Pee-pee up in both hands and shook him lightly. There was no response, and all of the color had vanished from his eyes. Wait, why is Pee-pee dead? He didn't move at all. Pee-pee was frozen, as if he were dead. Is he, like, cryo-frozen, or is he, like, dead? Suddenly, a faded fragment of a memory appeared in the back of my mind. Although it had been weathered and tinged by the flow of time, it was a scene that I was positive I knew. Oh, I guess that would potentially account for one more body. For the 7 count. If there was somebody, like, cryogenically frozen... No, I guess cryogenically frozen you may or may not still give off body heat, you probably wouldn't. But, like, they've mentioned it so many times now, that, like, I feel like it has to be relevant. Like, it's a cool sci-fi thing, and they've gone to no short lengths to, like, foreshadow it, right? Like, I'll almost be disappointed if it doesn't become relevant. Although it had been weathered and tinged by the flow of time, it was a scene that I was positive I knew. It was a scrap of a conversation between Sora and Yubisei Akikana. But really, that Connie, I tell you, that robot dog looks so much like the real thing that I'll bet he's treating it like a normal pet. Hey, didn't you have a robotic dog at your house? Yep, sure do. Actually, it's my mom's, though. I think it's just one of those old types, but it just keeps ticking along happily. Never breaks. If they were talking about Pee-pee, that would mean Pee-pee was a robot, an electronic dog. There wasn't any proof, but looking at Pee-pee's motionless body, it was obvious that it wasn't the dead body of an animal. Interesting? Like a wind-up toy that had stopped moving, Pee-pee's limbs had frozen in an unnatural position. Takeshi and Tsugumi both observed Pee-pee, who had become nothing more than a broken toy. Takeshi opened his mouth slightly. It seemed like he was about to say something. Suddenly... boom. With a roaring sound, the whole room shook violently. Wait, so Pee-pee was a robot all along? What the fuck? I don't know how relevant that is. Like, obviously it impacts the living creature count. But past that, is it relevant? Does the fact that Pee-pee was the one who was able to find the serum, like, make more or less sense, given that revelation? And also, like, it makes it even harder to get to 7, right? Like, now we have one more person unaccounted for. Like, previously, we could make us... Like, we had at least 7 living creatures inside the facility. At least the first time around, right? We had, Takeshi, you, Kid, Coco, Tsugumi, Chami, Pee-pee, right? So that was 7. But if Pee-pee's not alive, then we're just back down to 6. So we, like, don't have a way of getting up to 7. Unless there's somebody still in the complex that we don't know about, which is probably true given the fact that, like, after everyone died or left, it was still at 1. And it was still at 1, like, every ending. So, there's somebody who's spending far more time in Limu than they really have any right to be. With a roaring sound, the whole room shook violently. Takeshi's body flipped like a small twig and flew into the wall. Tsugumi tumbled and danced through the air to fall on the floor with a thud. 5 minutes until implosion. Hey, what did that announcement just say? Holding Peepee under his arm, Takeshi looked up at the ceiling. Tsugumi quickly got up. We got 5 minutes until this place implodes? 5 minutes? Give me a break. Why do they gotta tell us when there's only 5 minutes left? Give us some more warning for crying out loud. Anyway, we've only got 5 minutes. Tsugumi shrugged her shoulders exaggeratedly and stared at Takeshi. Just gotta accept reality. You could learn something from me, you know? Listen to yourself, Tsugumi. Telling jokes at a time like this is more my style, don't you think? Well, I guess you're right. We should be okay if we've got 5 minutes, right? A smile floated to her lips, and Tsugumi held out her hand at Takeshi. Of course! Takeshi took her hand firmly. 4 minutes until implosion. I continued to observe. I accepted the world as it was, understood it, and input it. I had no feelings. Feelings seemed to me to be something people gave out in response to the world, as a way of igniting change in their surroundings. But there at that time, I had no physical body. I had no hands, nor feet, no voice, no lungs, no organs for generating heat. In other words, I had no way of interacting with the world. Therefore, even if I were to have had emotions, there was nothing I could do with them. The only thing I could do was to watch. What's more, the act of watching was, much different than what normally could be associated with sight. This type of vision went far beyond feelings or thought. It was completely isolated, completely removed. The passage of time had condensed down to one moment, and that had exploded in front of me. I had seen everything in one instant. One instant. Standing still in a world where time had stopped, I saw everything. Yes, at least something's going right. Taxi's even waiting for us. Well, of course. Taxi? They aren't gonna just leave us high-tipping customers here. In front of them, the small submarine bobbed gently in the waves. 3 minutes until implosion. Only 3 minutes left. Takeshi and Tsugumi hurriedly scrambled onto the sub and jumped down the hatch. Tsugumi slid over to the driver's side of the cockpit, checked to see if the gauges were in order, and flipped some switches. The hatch overhead closed automatically. Tsugumi took the controls. The mini-sub made bubbling sounds and sunk quickly into the water. As soon as they passed under the bottom of IBF, the ocean current pushed on the heavy hull of their vessel. Takeshi looked out into the ocean from a small window attached to the wall. Lima was breaking apart. The frame started to warp and fold on itself, like some crumpled old newspaper. Partitions cracked into small pieces and fluttered in the water as if they were petals falling from a flower. Letting out its final breath, Limu spewed out fine air bubbles into the sea, which flowed gently in the current. From the twisted wreckage, black smoke rose in the water. The pieces of iron drifting in the ocean glittered from the sunlight coming from above. And the edge of his rapidly clearing field of view, the sinking shadow of the brutal wreckage could be seen. Paradise sank into dark blue darkness, raising a spine-chilling death cry. What do we do from here? Tsugumi asked in a quiet voice. The small egg-shaped vessel holding the two of them headed silently toward the surface. There's so much that I want to do. But first, I'm thinking more where to start. Takeshi spoke as he placed the motionless Peepee on the seat next to him. What about you, Tsugumi? What do you want to do? What, you didn't like the question? No, it's not that. Can I have a minute to think about it? Sure. Takeshi smiled. But that smile would soon fade. Wham! A heavy ringing filled the submarine. What? What was that sound? Tsugumi looked at Takeshi worriedly. I dunno. Beep, beep. The operating console made a funny sound. What's that noise? No clue. Hey, something just came up on that screen over there. The monitor behind Tsugumi started blinking. What does it say? You're closer than I am, why don't you turn around and look at it yourself? No. I don't want to see it. I've got a really bad feeling about this. Don't be so selfish. Looking like he didn't have any other choice, Takeshi peeked at the monitor. Which one? Low battery. That's what it says. As if responding to what Takeshi said, the lights in the sub suddenly went out. The monitor went dark, and all of the power went out. The electrical equipment went silent. The only thing still working was the analog pressure gauge. Present depth, 189 feet. Internal pressure, 12.5 atmospheres. Takeshi... Tsugumi's voice was shaking. It's okay, we're gonna be fine. Stop looking like you're gonna cry. Depth, 192 feet. Its momentum lost, the submarine began sinking slowly, very slowly. Residual air pressure, 0. Ballast tank, unable to drain. Wonderful, and we hitched a ride on a junker. You know, this cab always seems to stall on these country roads. Terribly sorry, ma'am. Depth, 195 feet. Takeshi looked at the aft hatch. It had a 2-ply hatch. An inner side was made of reinforced glass and FRP, and the outer side had a door made from high-strength steel. Hey, you think if we let some of the high-pressure gas out of the hatch, we'd start rising again? No. I don't think we'll go straight up, and our momentum will be limited. Not to mention the fact that if we do that, we'll start flooding. Because we don't have any more compressed air. And we don't have enough buoyancy in the main fuselage. Buoyancy. We've got to get rid of ballast. Ballast. The valve used to release ballast is usually electronically controlled. But now we're... Alright, let's just stay calm. Judging by how fast we're sinking, we only need to be a little bit lighter, right? If we can get rid of about 100 pounds or so, we should be fine. Try pulling out a few of those machines over there. That should make us lighter. You think it's going to be easy? Well, they seem to be welded on fairly good. Probably not easy to do barehanded. And unfortunately, we don't have any tools. So that's it, huh? Tsugumi bit her lip and looked down. Yep. We are screwed. Depth, 201 feet. They were sinking. Without any electricity, the submarine was just a hunk of metal. Looks like we celebrated too soon. Doesn't it? So stupid. I'm so stupid. Tears began to fill Tsugumi's eyes. Tsugumi raised her voice. A single tear fell, rolling down her cheek. What are you doing, Takeshi? What, you can't tell by looking? I'm opening the hatch. It's why I'm asking you, what are you doing? You even need to ask. Stop it! What are you planning to do? Tsugumi grabbed onto Takeshi's arm. Don't try to stop me. He threw off Tsugumi's arm and raised up the glass hatch. It was just large enough for one person to go through. Please don't touch me. Don't touch me. No, I won't let you go! Tsugumi grabbed onto Takeshi's arm fiercely. I don't care if I die. I'm not letting go. Depth, 207 feet. They wouldn't stop sinking. Slowly and steadily they fell, headed for the dark bottom of the ocean. You know, you really are selfish. Hey, Tsugumi. You know what the Archimedes principle is? Huh? For that instant, Tsugumi's grip relaxed. In that brief instant, Takeshi tore himself forcefully away from her grasp. He quickly opened the glass hatch and slipped to the back of the airlock. The area between the hatches was extremely cramped. Takeshi closed the glass hatch from inside and shut the latch right away. They had passed a depth of 210 feet. Takeshi! Takeshi! What are you doing? Open it up! Get out of there! Tsugumi wildly pounded on the reinforced glass with her fists. Tsugumi, what are you saying? The glass is pretty thick, you know. I really can't hear you very well. You stupid idiot! Open up this instant! What are you thinking? Tears started falling from Tsugumi's wide-open eyes. Tsugumi desperately pounded the flat of her tear-covered hand against the glass. Hey, wait a second, didn't you? I thought you knew about Archimedes' principle. I mean, I think you were the one who taught me about it. I guess you know then. Sorry about that. This isn't funny. Stop joking. It's not about that. You fool. Takeshi, you idiot. Tsugumi sobbed as she screamed. Yeah, I'm an idiot. The biggest one there is. You didn't know that? Tsugumi. Takeshi put one hand behind him on the other hatch, and slowly turned the handle. Takeshi? Tsugumi froze in place. No. Do you really want to die? Don't worry. I may be stupid, but not that stupid. And saying this, Takeshi continued to turn the handle on the other door without stopping. Depth, 219 feet. Please, don't leave me. Don't leave me all by myself. There you go, always worrying. Takeshi forced a smile. I keep telling you it's gonna be okay, right? Yes. You wanna live, don't you? Yes. So live! As long as you're alive, live! Don't worry. I'm not gonna die. 222 feet. The hatch on the bottom of the submarine opened. The air, which had been compressed into the airlock, was jettisoned into the ocean. Takeshi's body shot out like a bullet into the water. Bubbles flew everywhere. An infinite number of white bubbles floated toward the surface. They seemed like powdery snow caught in the wind. Snow that flew toward the heavens. He could no longer hear her voice. From the other side of the glass, he could make out her blurry outline. Her face covered with tears. Her face was broken with sadness. 225 feet. Takeshi paddled through the water, holding onto the railing. He closed the outside hatch. He couldn't see her anymore. 228 feet. He let go of his last source of support, and kicked the sub. Takeshi's body spun out as if it were dancing into a blue world. 231 feet. He sank toward the bottom of the ocean. White bubbles extended out beyond his field of vision, wobbling slowly upwards towards the heavens. Depth 357 feet. Everything that he could see dissipated into the water. Outlines faded, nothing came into focus, only light and shadow reflected in his eyes. There was one thing, however, that he could see clearly through the haze. A small white dot swaying in the distance. Dazzling light from the sky poured down on him from a single point. Its image burned into both his eyes. Blub. He let out his last gasp of air. Cold seawater poured into his lungs. A blanket of blue darkness covered him in his final resting place. His limbs, sprawled out on the rocky ocean floor, had stopped moving, like a marionette with its strings cut. Dad. Back in the world of 2034. When I returned to consciousness, I was crying. Feelings overcame me in torrents, rushing through me hotly. Dad is dead. The weight of my sadness pressed down on me, and a sense of futility tore a hole in my heart. But it was no time to be overcome by sadness. Wiping the wetness from my cheeks, I looked at my surroundings. A new day was breaking, just as it had been in 2017. Through my tears, the blue sky and ocean came into my vision. It seemed that I was above the floating island. I could analyze the situation calmly, but the tears wouldn't stop. I wiped them away with the palm of my hand and licked the large drops as they rolled past my mouth. Squeezing my eyes shut tightly, I took in deep breaths to calm down. I trembled slightly as I let out a sigh, and looked around at my surroundings again. It was definitely above the floating island. The wind was blowing lightly and the green trees were swaying gently. The morning sun was letting out golden rays onto the surface of the ocean. It had been a while since I had been outdoors. The wide blue sky, the smell of the warm humid breeze. But beautiful as it seemed, it didn't help me one bit. Rather, the richness of it all made me feel even more alienated. I'm so alone, and so terribly sad. I wiped away the tears, which continued to flow, and tried hard to suppress my urge to cry out. I had to think. It was no time to be crying. I shook my head repeatedly and tried with all of my strength to collect my atrophied thoughts. Think, think, think! First, I needed to grasp the situation I was in. I followed the threads of my memory. I remembered having gotten safely out of Limu, but had no memories after that. I had no idea what had happened after that. I couldn't imagine that I'd been standing outside all night. Huh? I suddenly realized that nobody else was there. As I began to walk on grass, I looked wildly in all directions. Soon, I became aware of one solitary figure. It was Kaburaki. He had his back to a tree trunk and was staring out at the vast ocean. I ran over to him and screamed at him. Why would you do something like this? Answer me, I know everything now! Kaburaki was silent. He wouldn't even look at me. It was obvious that he was the closest person to being responsible for everything happening here. Takeshi Kuronari, my father's name. He had used this name to deceive us the whole time. I drew even closer. Say something! Don't just stand there! I said say something! I grabbed onto his shirt. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you anything. Kaburaki's eyes were wet. He seemed to be thinking deeply about something as he gazed at me. But I will tell you this. This isn't over, okay? It all starts from here. Yeah, all of it starts from right now. I relaxed my grip. Kaburaki didn't say anything more, and walked away gazing in the direction of the distant horizon. What the hell does that mean? I stood there, vacantly staring at his back, while it became smaller and smaller. Somebody tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and Sora was standing right in front of me. Yeah, this is something that I was getting caught up about at Yu's ending, right? Like, how is Sora able to tap people's shoulders? That should not be part of her skill set. Right? Sora was standing right in front of me. We've been waiting for you. What are you doing here? Only this thought didn't reach my lips. There was clearly no RSD on this floating island. Oh yeah, that too. But like mostly the tapping on the shoulder part. But she had just tapped me on the shoulder. I couldn't process the information, and stood there gaping in confusion. I reached out to touch Sora's arm absent-mindedly. Her skin was smooth, its texture slightly elastic, and warm to the touch. Come this way. Wait, so what am I supposed to infer from that? Am I supposed to infer, like, robot or, like, actual skin? Like, the description was, like, not specific enough. Like, you could describe real skin as smooth. You could also describe robot skin as smooth. I don't know. Also, I guess we can infer, sort of, from, Pee-Pee being a robot that, like, in this sort of setting, you can make robots with fairly convincing skin. Like, convincing enough that, like, the protagonist, so I guess Takeshi, didn't ever notice from a distance that PP wasn't flesh and blood. Come this way. Sora grinned. There was Sora, smiling as always. It does sort of make sense thematically that this Sora would be a robot, because then that sort of gives purpose to the polycarbonate disc that Takeshi what did he do with it? He did something with it. Anyway, the polycarbonate disc that Takeshi backs up Sora's memories onto, right? Like it would make some degree of sense if this is sort of the end state of that disc. I felt saved by her smile. I was led by Sora into the forest. A small stone-covered path was overgrown in a deep thicket. The tips of the trees stretched up high, almost entangling one another. Hardly any light squeezed through. There was no breeze here either. The air was wet, and everything felt heavy and stagnant. The small stone path snaked around randomly, and I soon lost all sense of direction as I continued walking. I moved forward along the passage with no exit. Also, on a similar note to Takeshi being a robot, I'm pretty sure Chami was not actually there in the kids' route, right? So we're out like a bunch of people there. Like, I have no idea how you're supposed to get to 7 there, right? Like, you have 5 humans and no pets. And, like, even if Coco counts, you still have 1 unaccounted for. So, like, I guess you could count Coco maybe, and then the 1 unaccounted for that's the same as in Takeshi's route, so I guess I can just, like, use Blick Winkel as a placeholder name for this last mysterious individual. So I guess if Coco counts, then we don't have a problem. But if Coco doesn't count, then we have 2 problems. And one of the problems can be this Blick Winkel, or whatever we're going to call this, the 7th individual. But, like, if Coco doesn't count, then we have another problem on top of that. I moved forward along that passage with no exit. For some reason, I didn't say a word to Sora, whose back was in front of me. I walked up beside her and interlaced my fingers in hers. I didn't know why I did that. Was it just curious, or had I wanted a sense of security? Sora looked over at me and smiled. Maybe the reason I grabbed onto her was just because I wanted to see her smile at me. Not long afterward, we finally emerged from the forest. My field of view widened, and beyond spread out an area of lush green grass and the rich blue ocean. My line of sight was drawn to the back of someone very familiar to me. Yu was standing right in the center of the open space, and she was standing with her back to me. And someone else, a woman who looked just like her. They were facing each other and standing still. I braced against the rising tide of emotion within me, and went to stand over by them. I flashed to look back. Sora was standing at the entrance to the forest, and didn't appear to be coming closer. In the center of that area were you, the lady, and I. The other lady, of course I knew her name. Tanaka Yubise Harukana. She'd been infected with the cure virus, and although she seemed young, she didn't look quite 17. It was probably since her cells had divided for 5 years, which caused her to age up slightly. In other words, the body was that of a 23-year-old, but she was actually 35. I looked over at Yubise Akikana, standing next to me. She had her hand curled into a fist and was glaring at her mother. She was so mad she was shaking. I realized that the person who had been manipulating everything behind the scenes had been the person standing in front of me, Yubise Harukana, Yu's mother. Oh! Wait, what? That makes less sense than it being, what's-his-name's fault? Kaburaki. Like, what's the motive? Like, presumably Yubise Harukana's motive structure revolves around, like... Oh, wait, no. I was gonna say, like, the teeth blow outbreak, but that's not true, right? Like, I was gonna get... Like, that made sense, right, if it wasn't actually Yubise Harukana's fault. But the teeth blow outbreak was only relevant for the first accident. For the second accident, it was on purpose, right? And so they're saying it's Yubise Harukana's fault, but her motive structure should structure around, like... She should have, like, Yubise Akikana's best interest at heart. Which implies then that the accident was somehow in Yubise Akikana's best interests? Like, that doesn't make any sense. She'd been up here safe and sound on the island, relaxing, looking down at her plight, and had probably been laughing the whole time. I glared over at her, along with Yuaki. Haru appeared indifferent to our stares, and said nonchalantly, "Do you have any questions?" I laughed without thinking. What the hell kind of thing was that to say? Why? Why would you do something like this? In order to call forth Blick Winkel. What the heck is Blick Winkel? You already know that, don't you? Blick Winkel is you. Hello. This doesn't really come as a surprise to me. That was, like, sort of implied. Like, it would be either more or less surprising if I knew what the hell Blick Winkel was. But, like, as soon as, the kid starts, like, taking up this weird role of observer in the flashbacks just now, like, it's obvious that he's not sort of operating along the same rules as everyone else. Oh! So I guess Hokuto and Coco are both, like, normal people, but then there's this, like, spirit/entity called Blick Winkel that, I guess, possessed each of them, maybe? I'm gonna keep reading and, like, maybe it'll make more sense then. Me? I'm Blick Winkel? Yes. I'm not talking to Hokuto. I'm talking to the perspective on the other side of Hokuto. Perspective? Yes. The third eye, Blick Winkel. The you on the other side of Hokuto. That's right, the part of you that's looking at me right now. Wait, is she talking to me like IRL me? Because that would be messed up. Like, that would be, like, real fucking meta. It is you who I'm talking about. From the beginning, you've been the kid. When you overlapped with Hokuto, you lost his memory and became you. Oh, no, never mind. It wouldn't make sense for Blick Winkel to be, like, me, because we didn't read the story from Coco's point of view, right? If Blick Winkel is, like, IRL me, then it would make sense for the first story arc to be from Coco's point of view, but it wasn't, so I'm probably not Blick Winkel. Thank goodness. When you overlapped with Hokuto, he lost his memory and became you. So it makes sense that he had amnesia. You never lived in this world before. You have no history here, no memories of this place. On May 1st, 2034 at 3:17 p.m., you uttered your first words in this world, kid. You aren't from this world. You're looking down at this world from one dimension higher than this. That's why you can see the future and the past. Wait, does Blick Winkel give off heat? Is Blick Winkel the seventh person? Not sure I'm in love with that explanation. Because, like, Blick Winkel sort of has to give off, like, some sort of existence for the scene, I think in the previous video, where Takeshi and Tsugumi are, like, staring directly at the screen, right? Where they're like, huh, that's weird, I feel like someone's watching me. Like, you can chalk that up to a narrative technique, to, like, I don't know, add suspense or intrigue or whatever, but assuming that there is an in-universe explanation for that, then it makes sense for Blick Winkel to give off, like, some sort of heat signature or something. So, it's not impossible that Blick Winkel counts as the seventh person, but, like I said, I'm not thrilled with that explanation. That's why you can see the future and the past. Well, that's not all. You can probably also see other time continua. The reason Kid could see the future is, you know all there is to know about this world. It only makes sense you didn't respond to the name Hokuto. I mean, your real name isn't Hokuto, right? You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to lie to yourself. So, show your true self. Answer me truthfully. You aren't really a kid named Hokuto, are you? Who am I? Who are you? I am Hokuto. Who are you? Who am I? You're Hokuto. I'm not Hokuto. I'm not Hokuto. I am me. I'm me. Yes, I remember. I am me. I have watched your world for so long. Watching. I'm but a perspective. An eye that transcends dimensional boundaries. I'm the third eye. I am Blick Winkel. I remember now. I'm not from your world, am I? I'm not Hokuto. Ah, it sure has been a long time. A long time? Nah, don't worry about it. Thank you for showing yourself. Why? Please, tell me why. Why did you have to do this? I already told you. In order to, well, I guess you could call it a summoning. In order to reach me, did you really have to do something so reckless and dangerous? Yes. Just as I explained earlier, you've been looking down on our world from your dimension, right? Let's say that there was a conscious being from the second dimension. What do you think that the second dimensional being would have to do in order to make contact with the third dimension? For instance, on an XY plane, there are some two-dimensional beings, points A, B, and C. And on XYZ space, you have a three-dimensional being, point D. Points A, B, and C can only move on an XY axis. So how can they draw point D to them? You have point C move on the same line as points A and B. When that happens, points A, B, and C form a line and create a common plane with point D. That makes sense, I guess? Right, because if you have a three-dimensional figure and you essentially imagine you have a four-sided die and then you push down on the top side, you eventually get down to a two-dimensional plane. Like, I understand the analogy, but it doesn't make quite as much sense when you translate it three-dimensional, four-dimensional. Meaning, point D becomes part of the same plane as points A, B, and C. When that happens, for the first time, point D has an illusion that it's in the same world as A, B, and C. That's what we did. In creating a world where you couldn't tell if it was 2034 or 2017. Wow. That's pretty troll. I feel like I'm being trolled. Point D. In other words, we were able to create the illusion that the fourth dimensional being, the perspective Blick Winkel, was in our same reality. And you showed yourself to us, descending into the space in front of us. We were waiting for you. All of us. We've been waiting for you for so long. Why? Why were you waiting for me? What reason could you have to call for me? We were just following your directions. Huh? You called yourself. What do you mean? You needed us, and we needed you. Why? In order to save Coco and Takeshi, we needed to borrow your powers. To save Coco and Takeshi? We're powerless to fight the flow of time. There's nothing we can do about the past. But you can. The reason being that someone like you from the fourth dimension. Okay. Well, Yubisei Harukana's motivations make a lot more sense now. Can travel freely through time. I saw it then. I saw everything. My consciousness had detached from Hokuto and gone back to the world of 2017. Hokuto's feelings and thoughts hadn't reached me, but our perspectives had overlapped. An observer with no feelings. All I could do was witness events as they passed. The submarine that Tsugumi was on had continued floating up and had already made it back to the surface. It was a small white vessel, rocking in the waves. Shut inside the small submarine, Tsugumi's shoulders drooped as she sat in the cockpit in shock. Having lost everything, she sat there spiritlessly, looking empty like a glass ornament. Just then, the lights came back on in Pee-Pee's eyes, who moments before had been motionless at Tsugumi's feet. He got up quickly. She seemed to be unable to comprehend what was happening. Pee-Pee shook off his body, flashed to look up to Tsugumi's face, walked over to stand in front of the glass hatch. Scratch, scratch. Pee-Pee began pawing at the hatch. So wait, are we Pee-Pee now? Is Pee-Pee Blick Winkel now? What's wrong? Tsugumi mumbled weakly. Pee-Pee stood facing the hatch and barked. You want to go outside? Tsugumi's gaze wandered about as if she were thinking something over. Pee-Pee continued barking the whole time. The submarine rocked gently in the waves. Tsugumi put both of her hands on the wall and looked outside of the window. Okay. Saying that, Tsugumi opened the hatch. Not the glass one, but the heavy one on top of the submarine. A pure white light flashed in the interior of the ship like the sharp edge of a blade. Tsugumi squinted against the brightness. She held up one hand to fend off the light and with the other pushed on the hatch with all her might. She picked up Pee-Pee and brought him outside of the boat. Pee-Pee kicked hard against the hull to fly into the air, and drawing a beautiful arc, he splashed into the ocean. One mechanical dog, swimming in the ocean. Down, down, down he went. Yeah, not sure how you thought that one was going to play out, Pee-Pee. He didn't stop at 51 feet, 102 feet, 153 feet, 204 feet, 255 feet, 306 feet, 357 feet. A hard rock surface deep in the blue darkness. A man's body lay on the ocean bed. Pee-Pee bit into his clothing and pulled. Was he trying to bring him somewhere? Of course, the man didn't move at all. Pee-Pee bit on some exposed flesh. The man didn't respond. His life had expired. All that remained there was a cold corpse. Nothing more. Something had fallen to his side. A disc. A terabyte disc. Okay, so this is how the disc gets back into the hands of somebody who isn't at the bottom of the ocean. Pee-Pee picked it up in his mouth and left the body behind. He started swimming in the ocean. Going sideways, he cut across the water. At the bottom of the dark sea, there was only the cold surface of the rock and dark black seawater. Occasionally, delicate streams of light would pass by. Perhaps Pee-Pee had found something? Without hesitation, Pee-Pee swam straight toward the white building. Splash. The face of a single dog broke the surface of the pool. He stuck out his front legs onto the edge and climbed onto the floor. He shook himself off. Small droplets of water flew off in all directions, forming a mist. The terabyte disc was still in his mouth. Pee-Pee ran. He lost his footing on the wet floor, slipped and fell. Standing up again, he readied himself and dashed off at a full gallop. His pliant body shot like a coiled spring. Pee-Pee ran down the passages, breaking to the right and turning to the left. He was aiming for something. Pee-Pee. Pee-Pee. Only her voice could be heard. Uff! Pee-Pee barked loudly. The disc fell out of his mouth to spin across the floor with a rattle. Wait, they just, left Coco here? That's hella rude. Pee-Pee quickly braked with all four legs, turned around to get the disc, and dashed across the floor again. Pee-Pee. Take Pyon. When he turned the corner, her figure jumped out at him. She was lying down in the middle of the passage. Pee-Pee ran over to her side. He set down the disc on the floor, and biting at her clothes, started pulling on her. He tried desperately to pull her along, but just as he could not budge the man before, it was too much for his small frame to budge her. Woof! Woof! Pee-Pee. She opened her eyes weakly. Oh, where did you go? I was so worried about you. Pee-Pee licked her face. Where is everyone? I don't understand when you whine. Pee-Pee pulled on her clothes and scratched her shoulder, grunting with his effort. Perhaps he realized there was nothing he could do, but Pee-Pee barked frantically. Hey, Pee-Pee? Let's go home. Daddy and Mommy were waiting for us. So, let's go home. Okay? Pee-Pee. She closed her eyes quietly. No matter how much he barked at her, she wouldn't open her eyes. Pee-Pee started walking around the area. He finally stopped, and picking up the disc that he had left on the floor, and started running again. Going back the way he came, he made it into the pool. Without hesitating, he threw himself into the pool. He started swimming in the ocean, rising up and up. He didn't stop. 306 feet, 255 feet, 204 feet, 153 feet, 102 feet, 51 feet, 0 feet. Splash. Pee-Pee's feet broke the surface. The blue expanse of the sky loomed above him. The sun had changed the water to a silvery color. Someone was there to pick up Pee-Pee. It was Haru. She took the terabyte disc from his mouth and looked at the digital recording of IBF that Pee-Pee had taken with his eyes. That was the first time that she realized the truth. That left behind at the bottom of the ocean in the research facility was a single girl. The girl was Coco. It was Coco Yagami, Yubisei Harukana said. Kaburaki and I, who had been infected with the TB virus, were rescued by the salvage vessel. But Coco wasn't aboard the submarine with us. I was unconscious then, so I hadn't noticed. But I realized it afterward. Coco had been left behind in IBF. I can't believe it. This is Intel Null Control. Please respond. This is the examination room in IBF-3. Over. Thank goodness. That's where you were. A little while ago, we got a message from the dispatch team that they couldn't find you. You had us worried there. I'm sorry, I was out for a bit. We were able to rescue the other 3 people in the examination room, and they're being cared for in the salvage vessel. Oh yeah, that's why I didn't see that one coming. Because they said they got the other 3 people, which we just sort of assumed were, Kaburaki, Coco, and you, but I guess one of the 3 people they were talking about was the guy? Or, Coco's dad, rather? Huh. Is everyone okay? We can't say for sure. Their conditions are serious. We're fighting against time. The submersible is going to surface soon, and we'll transfer them to a floating medical center. Okay, you take care of them. The control center said they'd rescued the other 3 people in the examination room. So why? Those 3 people were me, Kaburaki, and one more, my father, Yoichi Tanaka. Wait, is he the 7th person? Wait, does the life counter count IBF, then? Like, maybe it, like, maybe counts IBF. Like, IBF is, like, almost in its range. Is that why the numbers are fluctuating? Because then you have the 5 people, and then you have, or like the 5 members of the main cast, and then you have Yagami and something or another, Yagami and Yoichi down in IBF, and like that's why the number is flickering. That would be kind of boring for an explanation, but it would make sense, I guess. Although then it doesn't explain why it's staying at a solid 1 at the end of the kids' routes, because Coco is still there, who, by that logic, would count towards the 1, but because she's in IBF, it's, like, not a consistent 1, right? And then it still doesn't make any sense for the kids' routes. Because presumably by that point, Coco's dead. Or if we're gonna do fun time-travel-y things as Blick Winkel, she's not dead. But one way or the other, like, she shouldn't be in IBF anymore. Why'd the rescue team leave Coco there? I heard it from them afterwards, but they said they couldn't find her. Oh, I remember. By the time the rescue squad got there, Coco wasn't in the examination room. I don't know why, but for some reason Coco had gotten out of her capsule pod. The only people left there were you, Kabadaki, and Mr. Tanaka, who was already dead. Wait, what? So that was, like, never Coco's dad? So the guy that died on them was Yu's dad? But that doesn't make I guess it does make sense that you wouldn't recognize him at first glance, and vice versa, because they'd been separated for God knows how many years. Is that right? He, like, disappeared when she was a kid. I thought he disappeared when, the you in the kids' routes was a kid, like 15 years before then. I thought he disappeared. Okay, now I'm confused. I give up. Done thinking. Thinking's hard. The only people left there were you, Kabadaki, and Mr. Tanaka, who's already dead. Yeah. You and Kabadaki's condition was extremely serious. So they put the highest priority on saving the lives of those two, and the rescue squad left. Meaning that they overlooked Coco. No, they abandoned her. You pinched her eyes shut, her face distorted in sadness. What do you want me to do? By the time those words left my mouth, I'd already returned to 2017. To that vast blue world. On the bottom of the ocean lay a cruelly broken body of a man. It didn't move. What do you want me to do? I'm not from this world. The only thing I can do is look. Just look on. Wanted to show me this dead body? Makes me sad. Terribly sad. I thought he said that he didn't do the whole emotions thing. He'd thrown his life away to protect the woman he loved. It was heartbreaking. His body had lost all warmth. I kept staring. Just then... Dad! 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 My awareness split, broke, fractured as a powerful force of will woke up inside of me. I was infused with an overwhelming passion. Hokuto's indomitable belief, willpower, emotions, and psyche were like a raging inferno that engulfed me. This ferocious and wild power raged within me and superseded my existence. It exploded in a shower of white sparks of light and roared like thunder. Overwhelmed by the raw vigor, I withdrew. It was no place for me to be. Hokuto exploded with bottled-up emotions and threw his instinctive power free into darkness. Dad! Dad! Don't you die on me! Please don't die! I still haven't met you yet! Please don't leave me! Dad! Sarah and I are waiting for you! Mom's waiting for you! Please don't leave her sad! Help us! You promised! You said I'm not gonna die no matter what, right? You swore you wouldn't let even one person die! Coco's still in the research facility! If you don't do something, she's gonna die! Dad! Dad! Takeshi opened his eyes. What? What? That doesn't make any sense. At the bottom of the seabed, under unbearable pressure, he regained consciousness. How many minutes had it been since he last breathed? But he was undeniably alive. Hello? I'm gonna need a better explanation for that one than what I was just given. because, like, read as written right now, this feels like bullshit. He had revived. I'm not gonna die. I promised her. I could hear the screams of his mind in my ears. Takeshi flipped over his body, kicking off the reef, and began to swim. He cut at the water with his arms, and kicked with his legs, continuing to swim wildly through the water. The water pressure didn't faze him, and his body felt no resistance. He moved forward in the darkness as if he were skating on ice. Bubbles trailed in an arc behind him. He maintained an unthinkable speed, tearing apart the wall of water in front of him. His only source of guidance was a faint light visible ahead. Splash. His momentum carried him flying out of the water. Takeshi pushed his face out of the water, racked by a fit of violent coughing, and spewed out seawater from his lungs. Like, it's not complete bullshit, so I'm not gonna be, like, completely heartbroken if they don't give me any more explanation than that, but, like, that was weak. You have to admit. Like, that was pretty weak. He clung to the edge of the pool, sucking in deep breaths of air. He had partly taken a breath, only to throw up massive amounts of water. He repeated this many times. When the painful fits had finally died down, Takeshi lay exhausted like the dead. Truth be told, he probably had been dead. Takeshi crawled across the floor. He flipped over on his back with a thud. He couldn't move. The sound of his heavy breathing echoed off the walls. "Dad! Dad! Hang in there!" Coco called out. "Ah!" Takeshi laughed. "I don't know who the heck you are. Don't call me Dad." "Dad, I'm telling you, I don't have any kids. But I'm your son." "Okay, then who's your mom?" Time for an awkward conversation. Tsugumi is. Laughing isn't gonna change anything. But there's no way you're gonna believe me. Because I'm talking to you from 17 years in the future. Okay. 17 years. That'd make it 2034, right? By the way, where are you? I can't see you anywhere. I'm close by you. Takeshi peeled himself off the floor where he'd been lying and rose slowly. He looked all around. "Even if you look for me, I don't think you can see me. I'm only looking at you, Dad. I don't have a clue what you're talking about, but my body isn't in your time. And it isn't like I'm using a speaker to send my words to you. I'm connected to your mind, talking to you." Takeshi put his finger in his ear and wiggled it. "I must be hallucinating this. I wonder if I'm... No! You don't have time for this. We don't have time to waste. Oh yeah, you mentioned earlier about Coco in the research facility, right?" "That's right. Coco didn't get out in one of the submersibles. The man from the rescue squad who told you about the survivors, he was talking about you, Kaburaki, and the researcher." "You've gotta be joking. You've gotta go back and check the research facility one more time. Coco's still in there." Takeshi hurried down the corridor. The research facility was almost entirely silent. The only sound was the echo of Takeshi's shoes against the floor. The corridor wound left and right. He searched around but didn't find any signs of anyone. "Hey, I don't see anyone. It's impossible. I'm telling you, she's gotta be there somewhere." Takeshi tilted his head, a bit quizzically. "Wait, they never went down to IBF in this story arc, right? Like... It basically just makes... Like, the way this makes the most sense is if this little mini arc ends with Takeshi sticking himself and Coco in the cryo chamber. So that's when the cryo chambers are finally going to come into play, right? Is Takeshi and Coco sticking themselves in the cryo chambers and setting them to, like, unlock or whatever at 2034. Because that way you don't run into the issues of, like, changing the past, right? Like, I hesitate to reference other works of time travel, because obviously that's spoilers for the works in question a lot of the time. But in another time travel related visual novel, we'll say, that was sort of how it worked. Right? Like, you can effectively change the past as long as you, like, don't change the past in front of anyone. Like, as long as the effects you have on the past are, like, unobservable, you can get away with it. Right? So, like, you can get away with saying that, like, that's what always happened, and then you, like, maintain causality and whatnot. So, if Takeshi and Coco get out of this alive, which presumably they will, like, that's sort of the standard narrative pattern it looks like they're gonna follow. Like, we're late enough in the story, it doesn't make sense for them not to survive, right? Given that that was, like, the goal of the actors who made half of the story happen. Like, it makes a lot of sense for them to just end up in the cryopods. So, let's hope I'm right about that, because I'm gonna feel super validated having been, like, hung up on the cryopods this whole time. Takeshi tilted his head a bit quizzically. Well, I suppose I should thank you. If you hadn't woken me up by saying something stupid like Dad, probably would have drowned. Are you alright? What do you think? Just about everything that has happened to me in the last few hours. Just think about everything that's happened to me in the last few hours, will you? Started with getting teeth flow, I got decompressed, recompressed, pumped up with Tsugumi's antibodies, and finally ended with getting sucked out to the bottom of the sea and practically drowning. Well, I guess I did kind of throw myself out there. In spite of all that, you seem to be doing alright to me. Well, I suppose Tsugumi's antibodies must have kicked in. Or maybe the effects of the cure virus have already started. Nah, there's no way his DNA could be rewritten so quickly. But that might be another explanation for why Takeshi recovered so quickly from jumping into the water. See, that one I can buy. Like, mysterious time-traveling entity is, like, a little bit too, much to accept. But, like, cure virus kicking in and making him not killable makes that whole sequence that just happened a lot more palatable from a, like, being properly foreshadowed standpoint. I have no way of knowing. It doesn't matter, though. He looks a lot better after walking around for a while. He looks strong, even. Takeshi walked down the passageway on steady legs. He came to an intersection. Checking quickly to the left and right, he set down the path to the left. It was right after that. Wait a sec. Did something just move right now? Without waiting for Hokuto's reply, Takeshi started running. Coco! Coco had fallen down in the corridor. Takeshi rushed over to Coco and lifted up her motionless body. Takepyon... Coco spoke faintly. What are you doing here? Well, Pee-Pee wasn't... I couldn't find him, and... So I went looking for him. It appeared that Coco had gotten out of the pod by herself before the rescue squad had arrived and gone off looking for Pee-Pee. You are the most... Totally... Takeshi shook his head dumbfounded. Coco looked innocently at the exasperated Takeshi and said the following words. Hey, is everyone else still sleeping? That was all Coco could say before she passed out. The next instant... Boom! A loud explosion shook the walls of IBF. The sound came from up above. The falling wreckage from Limu had probably collided with the roof of the research facility. Oh, I guess that puts a damper on my plan to, like, stick them in the cryopods and call it a day. Like, there's a non-zero chance that IBF is about to collapse as well. Paradise was still collapsing, it seemed. I mean, it's not a guaranteed thing. Like, my strategy might still be fully functional, but there's a chance that things are about to get a little more complicated. Takeshi quickly scooped up Coco's body and dashed across the floor. Kicking up his feet, Takeshi screamed to the void. Hey, what am I supposed to do? Can't you escape by swimming through the pool? Hokuto answered. Idiot. It's 357 feet under the water down here. Coco and I won't be able to hold our breath for that long. Besides, in order to surface, we have to decompress slowly as we go up. It's 12.5 atmospheres down here. And the ocean surface is 1 atmosphere. There's no way we can survive unless we get ourselves decompressed. How about the elevator? It's been cut off. The elevator tubes were destroyed a long time ago. There's no way to go up. Well, let's go to the examination room. I know that. Takeshi ran into the examination room. He hit the control panel and closed the door. Strangely, there was no sign of flooding inside IBF. There was no sound of running water, and the tremors had stopped for the time being. But there was still no time to relax. Coco's body was fast reaching its limit. Takeshi laid Coco down on the bed. He ran toward the side of the desk at the corner of the room. He opened one of the storage bins and grabbed something. It was the antibodies for T-Flow taken from Tsugumi. Coco hadn't been inoculated with it yet. Without a word, Takeshi gave Coco the antibodies. Coco had long passed the stage of suffering and lay there looking limp. Come on, do the trick. Takeshi threw the empty syringe away and held onto Coco's hand as she lay there. A while had passed, but Coco's condition didn't seem to be improving. As a matter of fact, it seemed to be getting worse. Oh, come on, how come it isn't working? Takeshi banged on the wall. Coco was infected a few days earlier than you, Dad. So her disease has been progressing for that much longer than everyone else. Damn it, we can't just sit here and wait. Besides, we gotta find a way to escape. Just need to think of something. Takeshi paced around the room with his head down. Occasionally, heavy noises echoed from the ceiling. Takeshi listened to the noises, and then Takeshi, looking as if he had just realized something, whispered to himself. I heard an announcement earlier before Tsugumi and I escaped. The announcement said something like, if you're not out in a few minutes, you're going to be crushed. This place is still standing. Why is that? I don't know why either. But maybe what? The announcement might have been about Limu imploding. But think about it. The laboratory's been built so the atmosphere on the inside and outside are equal. Since they're still balanced, it probably won't implode as easily. That must have been it. If you leave the cap on an empty plastic bottle, even if you come back years later, the air will still be trapped inside. Which meant that the laboratory should be safe. Unless extreme force was added from somewhere. Such as a giant piece of partition from Limu falling on it. Although he didn't seem to be fully convinced. Takeshi nodded upon hearing Hokuto's explanation. By accepting the explanation, he was probably trying to clear one of the many problems facing him at the moment. As time progressed, Coco's condition got worse and worse. Damn it, why is this happening? Why? Why? Takeshi kicked the wall. Well, Dad, you should have given her the antibody earlier. It's a little late for that now, isn't it? Besides, Coco was in the pod under pressure at the time. I couldn't just open up the lid. But I could have given her a shot without opening the lid. Because you said, it seems that this pod can also do laser disinfecting, as well as simple surgery, in addition to the oxygen treatment. And depending on how you use it, even cryogenic suspension. Okay, there's the setup. Where's my punchline? Since it has so many other functions, it probably should be able to give an injection. But you didn't say a word about being able to give shots without opening the lid, did she? And if she didn't mention it, it must not be possible. Besides, neither you nor I have any idea what this device can do. What's cryogenic suspension anyways? And there we go! It's like hibernation. Hokuto answered as if anyone would know. Hibernation? I mean, is that not fairly common knowledge? I mean, it's difficult for me to say if that's common knowledge or not, given, like, the fact that my proclivities have led me to probably a greater exposure to sci-fi than the average person in my demographic, but, like, I feel like cryogenic suspension is, like, a fairly common trope. I mean, like bears do in the winter? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that cryogenic suspension means you can artificially induce hibernation. It keeps human body temperature low, around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and reduces your heartbeat and breathing to the absolute minimum. That way it increases your metabolic efficiency and conserves as much energy as possible. I see. Hey, I wonder why they have it here. In the middle of saying this, Takeshi suddenly stopped. At the same time, Hokuto's thoughts stopped too. Welcome to the party. Glad to have you here. And then they screamed out at the same time. I've got it! We'll put her in cryogenic suspension! I got it! We can put her in cryogenic suspension! And you can imagine a third text box here that says Teo in bracket at the top, in which I say, I got it. We can put her in cryogenic suspension. If her body temperature is kept low, it'll slow down the rate of the virus infection too, right? Yeah! Alright, now, all we need now is a little more time. If we have time, I'm sure it'll work. If we can slow down that virus for even a minute or a second, it'll be better than nothing. Alright then. Takeshi carried the frail Coco and set her into the pod. Then he started flipping through the manual at full speed, skimming it. It didn't seem too difficult to set up. Takeshi, unlike his usual self, manipulated the computer terminal swiftly and smoothly. Then, all that was left was to turn on the switch. Coco was asleep in the pod. Takeshi reached out his hand to the switch that would close the lid. A split second before he flipped the switch, Coco quietly opened her eyes. Who is that? What? Who's standing behind you, Takepyon? Behind me? Takeshi looked back. Hokuto was there. Can you see him, Coco? Yeah, I do. Coco, it's me, Hokuto. Hokuto. Hokuto is your name. Can I call you Hokuton? The Coco of this time didn't seem to know Hokuto yet. So who is the phantom girl that I'd been seeing? Hokuto. Is that your name? Uh-huh. Really? Coco? I can't see him, but this guy Hokuto helped us, you know. Hokuton. Thank you. And the other person, you... Thank you. Other person? There's someone else? Yeah, there is. I can see him. behind Hokuton. Silence filled the room. The room temperature felt suddenly lower for some reason. Coco was looking at me. Just me. Into my eyes. Are you talking about me? Feeling flustered, I gathered up my courage and spoke up. Yeah, you. We finally meet. Huh? I don't know Hokuton, but I sure know you. Because all this time, you've been watching over me, haven't you? Mr. Fourth Dimension. Blick Winkel. Let's play Chick sometime again. Wait, what? I am Blick Winkel? Or am I not Blick Winkel? I'm very confused. We go P.O., 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 P.O. Coco, I was the one. Coco's cheeks eased up a little. I don't think you knew it, Takepion, but I didn't just play with you, I was also playing with him. Okay, so Blick Winkel is the player. I'm Blick Winkel. The mystery has been solved, ladies and gentlemen. It was me all along. I did it. Ah ha ha